A question I want you to sit with for a moment before I say anything else. How many hours a day do you actually live in your desired state? Not visualize it, not think about it, not hope for it. Live in it. Be honest with yourself. Really honest. Because the answer to that question explains everything, every manifestation that arrived, every one that didn't, every desire that's been sitting in the same place for months or years, stubbornly refusing to move. How many hours? For most of you, the answer is somewhere between 1 and 2, maybe less. That golden hour before sleep when you do your practice, when the scene is vivid and the feeling is real, and for a brief, beautiful window of time, you know your desire is done. You fall asleep in it. You feel it. And then morning comes. And within 5 minutes, sometimes less, it's gone. You check your phone. You feel the weight of the day. You remember what your bank account looks like, what your relationship status is, what your body feels like, what your circumstances are. And just like that, you're back. Back in the old state. Back in the familiar, comfortable, suffocating arms of everything you're trying to change. So you've given your desire 1 hour, and you've given your old reality 23. And then, and this is what breaks my heart, you wonder why the manifestation isn't coming. My friends, tonight we're going to fix that. Not with a new technique, not with a more powerful practice, but with a fundamental shift in how you understand what manifestation actually is and what it actually requires. Tonight, I'm going to show you how to stay in your assumption 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the clock, without exception. Are you ready? Then let's go. Let me start by telling you something that will reframe everything. Your consciousness is not like a light switch off until you turn it on for your nightly practice, then off again until tomorrow. Your consciousness is always on, always running, always, in every waking moment and every sleeping one, creating your reality based on whatever you are being, always. This means you are manifesting right now, as you sit here. You were manifesting this morning when you woke up. You were manifesting during lunch. You were manifesting in the car on the way here, and you will be manifesting on the way home, and you will be manifesting at 3 in the morning when you're not thinking about any of this at all. The creative process never pauses to wait for you to start your practice. It never stops while you're distracted. It never takes a break on weekends. It is always producing reality from whatever assumption is dominant in your consciousness at that moment. So, here is the question, the only question that actually matters. What assumption is dominant in your consciousness most of the time? For most people, the honest answer is their current circumstances, their current identity, their familiar patterns of thinking, feeling, and being that have been laid down over years and decades into deep-grooved channels of habit. They assume their desire for 1 hour. They assume their circumstances for 23. And they are shocked, genuinely shocked, when the 23 wins. But of course it wins. It has to win. Because manifestation doesn't come from what you do for 60 minutes. It comes from what you are most consistently. And if you are most consistently someone who doesn't yet have the thing, someone who wants it, works toward it, hopes for it, desperately needs it, then that is what must appear in your reality. Not because the universe is cruel, because the law is precise. Now, before I give you the practical framework for maintaining your assumption around the clock, I need to address something. There's a concept I call the default state. Your default state is the state your consciousness automatically returns to when you stop paying deliberate attention. It's your mental home base, your psychic resting position. And for the vast majority of people, the default state is not the wish fulfilled, it's the familiar, the habitual, the accumulated weight of everything they've experienced and believed and told themselves for years. Think of it like a rubber band. You stretch it. You pull it away from the center toward your desired state, and as long as you're actively pulling, you're there. But the moment your attention shifts, the moment life intrudes, or you get tired, or you simply stop thinking about it, the rubber band snaps back. That's why your manifestations aren't appearing. Not because your technique is wrong, not because you're not visualizing correctly, not because the universe hasn't heard you, because your default state is still your old reality. And the work, the real, deep, permanent work, is not to stretch the rubber band harder during your practice. It's to move the center, to make the new state your default, to embed it so deeply into your consciousness that when your attention drifts, it doesn't drift back to lack and limitation. It drifts back to the assumption of having. That is what 24/7 assumption means. Not white-knuckling your way through every hour in a state of exhausting vigilance. Not monitoring every single thought in a kind of anxious mental patrol. It means moving the center. It means making the wish fulfilled your new normal, your new automatic, your new home. And tonight, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Let's talk about your morning. Because the morning is where most people lose the entire day before it even begins. You wake up from your SATS practice. The feeling is still there, that warm, settled certainty from the night before. And you have, in that moment, an extraordinary opportunity. Your conscious mind is still soft. The barriers are still low. The old patterns haven't fully reasserted themselves yet. That moment, those first 30 to 60 seconds between sleep and full waking, is a gift. And most people throw it away. They reach for their phone. They check messages, news, notifications, bank balances. They start mentally rehearsing the day's problems. And in doing so, they hand the keys of their consciousness to their circumstances before they've even gotten out of bed. Here is what I want you to do instead. The moment you wake, before you move, before you reach for anything, before a single conscious thought about the day ahead, simply be in your desired state for 60 seconds. Not visualize it, not think about it. Be it. Feel yourself as the person who already has what you desire. Let that identity settle over you the way a warm blanket settles over a sleeping body, naturally, completely, without effort. You are not performing a technique. You are not starting a practice. You are simply recognizing what is already true in consciousness. 60 seconds. And then, this is crucial, you do not get out of bed to begin working toward your desire. You get out of bed as the person who already has it. That distinction seems small. It is everything. Because when you get up working toward it, you are, in every step, in every breath, in every interaction, coming from a place of not yet there. Every action is saturated with wanting. And wanting, as I've told you many times, is the assumption of absence. But when you get up as the person who already has it, you move through the world from a completely different frequency. Your posture is different. Your voice is different. The way you make your coffee is different. Not because you're performing anything, but because the assumption underneath everything is different. This is how you set the operating system for the day. This morning practice is non-negotiable. Rain or shine, inspired or exhausted, 7 days a week without exception. 60 seconds, that's all I'm asking. But those 60 seconds, compounded over days and weeks and months, will transform your default state entirely. Now, as you move through your day, something is happening constantly that most people never examine. You are talking to yourself. Right now, even as you're listening to me, there is a voice in your head commenting, judging, planning, worrying, remembering. A constant, unceasing inner conversation that runs from the moment you wake to the moment you fall asleep, and that shapes with absolute precision what you are assuming at every moment. And for most people, that inner conversation sounds like this: I can't afford that. Why does this always happen to me? Nothing ever works out the way I want. I'm so tired of being alone. I don't have enough. I'm not enough. Do you recognize it? Of course you do, because it sounds like being realistic. It sounds like being honest about your circumstances. It sounds like the sensible, grounded voice of someone who has simply learned to see things as they are. But here's what it actually is. It's the loudest, most persistent assumption machine you own. Every one of those statements is an assumption. Every time you think, I can't afford that, you are in that instant occupying the state of someone who cannot afford it. Every time you think, nothing works out for me, you are stamping that reality with the full authority of your consciousness. And you are doing this all day, hundreds of times, thousands of times, while your 1 hour visualization practice is bravely trying to establish the wish fulfilled. Your inner conversation is spending 23 hours dismantling it thought by thought. Now here is what must change. Your inner conversation must become the voice of the person who already has what you desire. Not forced, not screaming affirmations through gritted teeth, but genuinely thinking from the new state instead of about it. When you see something you want, not I can't afford that, but I could get that if I wanted. When something goes wrong, not why me, but this is working out perfectly, even if I can't see how yet. When you're alone, not I'm so lonely, but I am deeply loved. I am never truly alone. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending problems don't exist. This is choosing consciously, deliberately, with full understanding of what you're doing to think from your desired identity instead of your current circumstances. And at first, yes, it takes vigilance. You will catch yourself in the old conversation hundreds of times a day and have to redirect. That is the practice. That is, in fact, the most important practice I have ever described to you. Because when your inner conversation finally shifts permanently, your outer reality has no choice but to follow. It is law. Now, I'm a practical man, and I know that you cannot consciously monitor every thought, every waking second. That would defeat the purpose. You'd be so focused on policing your mind that you'd have no energy for anything else. So here is a simple system, deceptively simple, profoundly effective. Set an alarm every 2 hours. When it sounds, pause, not for 10 minutes, not even for 1 minute, just for 10 seconds. Ask yourself one question. What state am I in right now? Not what are you doing? Not how do you feel? What state are you in? Whose consciousness are you operating, from the person who has your desire or the person who wants it? If you've maintained your assumption, acknowledge it. Feel it for a moment. Let it deepen. If you've drifted, and you will drift, everyone drifts, simply return. No drama, no guilt, no spiral of self-recrimination. Just, oh, I drifted. Back to the state of having. It's done. Of course it's done. 10 seconds. That's all. Every 2 hours. Do this for 7 days and watch what happens. By the end of the first week, you'll start catching yourself drifting, even without the alarm. Your consciousness will become self-aware, self-correcting. By the end of the second week, the new state will start to feel more natural than the old one. By the end of the month, it won't feel like maintenance anymore. It will just feel like you. But now I have to address the hardest part. The part that trips up even the most dedicated, most disciplined, most sincere students of this work. Contradictory evidence. You are maintaining your assumption beautifully. Your inner conversation is shifting. Your morning practice is solid. And then something happens. The bill arrives. The bank balance is lower than you thought. The call doesn't come. The test results aren't what you hoped for. Your ex is with someone else. And in that moment, that precise, knife-sharp moment of confrontation with contrary evidence, something old and powerful surges up. Panic, doubt, fear. The gravitational pull of the old state, suddenly overwhelming, yanking you back with a force that makes all your practice feel like tissue paper. And most people in that moment give in. They react. They catastrophize. They abandon their assumption entirely and plunge into the circumstances, swimming around in the fear and the evidence and the sea. I knew it wasn't working. And with that reaction, everything they've built unravels. Now, I am not going to tell you to pretend you don't see what you see. I am not going to tell you to paste a smile over a genuine crisis or pretend a real problem doesn't exist. But I am going to tell you something that changes everything. What you see is old data. Think about it. If consciousness creates reality, and it does, it absolutely does, then what is appearing in your physical world right now is not your current assumption. It is the physical shadow of a past assumption. It is yesterday's consciousness, made solid and visible today. It is quite literally old news. The low bank balance is not your reality in consciousness. It is the echo of a state you used to occupy. The absence of the call is not evidence of failure. It is the delay between a shifted assumption and its physical crystallization. So when the contradictory evidence arrives, this is what you say to yourself, not as a performance, but as a genuine recognition of how reality actually works. This is old data. This is not my current reality in consciousness. I see it, I acknowledge it, and I choose to remain in my assumption anyway. You see it, you feel it, you do not deny it, and you do not let it move you. Because here is what most people don't understand about this moment. This is not the universe rejecting you. This is the universe testing the depth of your assumption. And every single time you remain in your desired state, despite contrary evidence, every time you choose the assumption over the appearance, you send a signal to your creative consciousness that is more powerful than 10 visualization sessions. You are saying, I know what is real, and what is real is my assumption. That signal, that builds worlds. As your day closes, you have one final, crucial practice. Before you fall asleep, review the day, not to judge yourself, not to catalog your failures, but to learn, acknowledge, and reinforce. Ask yourself, where did I successfully maintain my assumption today? Where did I drift? And what triggered it? When the evidence contradicted me, how did I respond? Acknowledge every win. Every moment you caught yourself in the old state and chose to return, that is a victory. It is proof that the new pattern is getting stronger. Celebrate it consciously. And then do your state akin to sleep practice. Lovingly, unhurriedly, with full understanding of what you're doing and why. Feel your desire fulfilled. Make it vivid and warm and real. And surrender into sleep from inside that state. Because here's something most people don't realize. The work continues while you sleep. Your subconscious mind does not rest. It is always running, always processing, always creating, and it is always working from whatever state you impressed upon it most deeply before consciousness faded. When you fall asleep in the wish fulfilled, your subconscious spends the next 8 hours as a creative engine, arranging, orchestrating, magnetizing circumstances that match that assumption. 8 hours of creation while you simply rest. If you fall asleep worrying about money, your subconscious works all night to justify that worry. If you fall asleep in the feeling of abundance, your subconscious works all night to realize it. So, even sleep, even those unconscious hours, becomes part of your 24/7 assumption. You are not taking a break from your desired state. You are deepening it. Now let me tell you where all of this leads. Because the goal is not to maintain a practice forever. The goal is something far more beautiful than that. The goal is identity. There are 2 phases to this work. In the first phase, the practice phase, you are someone who consciously chooses their assumption. You monitor your inner conversation. You do your morning practice. You set your alarms. You catch yourself drifting and return. It requires effort, vigilance, persistence. This phase is necessary and valuable. But if you persist, if you keep choosing the new state over the old, day after day, Week after week, something begins to shift at a deeper level. You stop being someone who is practicing being abundant. You simply are abundant. You stop being someone who is maintaining the assumption of love. You simply are loved. The assumed state stops being something you do and becomes something you are. The new pattern becomes stronger than the old one. The new identity becomes more real, more familiar, more you than the old one ever was. And at that point, that extraordinary tipping point, staying in assumption 24/7, requires no effort at all. Because you're not trying to maintain a state anymore. You're just being yourself. And yourself is someone who already has everything they desired. That is the ultimate goal of this work. Not perfect technique, not disciplined practice maintained indefinitely by sheer willpower, but a genuine, permanent, effortless shift in who you are. So here is my challenge to you. 7 days. Starting tomorrow morning, not to try, not to hope, to commit. 7 days of waking into your desired state before anything else. 7 days of monitoring your inner conversation and choosing every time to think from the new identity. 7 days of checking your state every 2 hours and returning without drama when you drift. 7 days of remaining in your assumption when the evidence contradicts it, especially then. 7 days of falling asleep in the wish fulfilled. 7 days, fully committed, no exceptions. I promise you, not as encouragement, but as the law that by day 7, something will be different. The new state will have more traction. It will feel more natural. The drifting will be less frequent, and the returning will be faster. You will have begun, in those 7 days, the process of moving the center, of making the wish fulfilled your default. Continue for another 7 days, and another, and at some point, and you will know it when it happens, because it feels like exhaling after holding your breath for years, the practice will dissolve into being, and you will simply be the person you always desired to become. Let me close with this truth. Staying in assumption 24/7 is not about perfection. You will drift. Everyone drifts. I drift. The most advanced practitioner of these principles you can imagine drifts. Drifting is not failure. Drifting is human. What matters, the only thing that matters is what you do the moment you catch yourself drifting. Do you spiral? Do you catastrophize? Do you tell yourself it's not working, you're not cut out for this, it's hopeless? Or do you simply, gently, without drama or self-judgment, return?